The name of the show is The Way to Go. My name is Alan Bendich. I'm going to be your host. Tonight's main guest is Frank M. Calo, a fantastic filmmaker. And of course, Jim Fulater is back for another show. Welcome, Frank.
Thank you,
It's great
sir.
to have you on the show.
Thank you, guys. Thank you both for having me.
No problem.
Here. It's a treat.
So-
it's a treat.
I mean, I did some research online about you, and you have like a fascinating background. And,
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
And that's why you're here.
Yeah.
And also, Jim suggested you as a guest, so I'm happy you're here.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, when did you? Have you always been involved in film?
All my life, since I was a little kid, I always knew what I was going to do now.
Yeah.
And I knew it. I just had to find the path. Right. And once you, just like anybody else coming up, we all had to do our, due diligence. We all had to come up and learn how to do business and learn what not to do and get fired and get yelled at. Because I came up in the old school when, on a film set, if you didn't know what you were doing, you just shut up, just coffee and you watch, and you observe and you learn, and kind of different than what it is today. But all my life, to answer your question, I always wanted to do it, and that's what thank God I was always led that path.
When did you first start? I mean, when you knew it, did you go to school first or did you work first?
In the film business, worked in the film business? No, I went to school. Went to school. I have 5 sisters, and I remember I used to go to the library and get plays. Yes. And I read plays. Right. And to this day, I would say, oh, I read that when I was 4 years old, but it helped me with the subtext, with the learning about subtext, and I used to line up my sisters because I was in the middle child, and I used to say, okay, we're gonna play acting today, and they were like, they would have a script, and I would give them the script, and they'd be like reading. I said, "You're not reading it right." And I'm going like this. I'm going like this. Like I'm doing that kind of a thing. And I knew I always wanted to do it. And then when I was in 6th grade, it was one of those fortunate times when you had a teacher who, I was always involved with the plays. I was always involved with the music or whatever. And she goes, you should really think about doing what, this business. I said, well, how do you do it? She goes, you got to find your way. And I went, oh man. But through her encouragement is what really got me going. And then I used to, I grew up in a tough neighborhood.
Where did you grow up?
In South Chicago.
Oh, wow.
And, it was kind of tough Spanish neighborhood. And so I was kind of like embarrassed to say what I wanted to do because everybody was, in the steel mills or working there or doing whatever, and I used to sneak out and went to the Goodman Theater. I got accepted at the Goodman Theater in Chicago, and that was my undergrad. And at that time, the Goodman Theater was in
So that was the plays?
Yeah.
So you started out in legitimate theater?
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
Theater.
Just like you?
Yeah. I started out, as a matter of fact, I was on Broadway in the 80s.
I did not know that.
Yeah, as an associate producer on a show called 9.
Wow.
The original show with Raul Julia. And we developed.
What an actor.
Oh, my
What
God.
an actor.
He's
missed.
Talk about a versatile actor.
He
was incredible. I saw him also do Arms of the Man at the Circle on the Square. He was so funny. He was incredible.
And he was Gomez.
Yes, and he was Gomez. Yeah, Gomez. But when that ran then no one knew that was going to run for. No one knew that was going to run for 10 years on Broadway, and it did. And what happened is. It was developed in a theater group that I was involved with called the Italian Forum of American Playwrights. And I was one of those kids that just was there. And I did everything. I stayed late. I swept the floors. I did everything. And they said, when the time came for them, 2 years later after developing the screenplay, the play, they said, well, they got the offer they got Tommy Tune to direct it. Oh, God. They got the money coming in. And they said, we're taking you with us. I went, oh, my God. And it was what
is that like? I mean, when you're there and you realize that you're so integral, you're so important that they're going to, how did you feel?
It was one of those gems. That's on the path of where you're going. It was a learning experience for me. I knew nothing.
Right. Your life was intentional, though.
Oh,
you were doing that. Luck happens to people who have an intentional
and you have to be
life.
humble. You have to want to learn.
That's it.
You have to want to learn. Sure. You have to seriously want to. You have to want this business.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, and you guys know as well as I do. You have to love this business because it'll eat you alive if it's not. And then what happened, and at the same time, what happened to me, I got the money I made from that show is what paid for my grad school at the NYU, and for film. And at that time, I had
What was it like, and when was this, if you don't
It was
mind?
in the 80s. In the 80s.
So
And
what was NYU like during the 80s?
It was great. It was great. It was a great place to be. It was, that whole area down there, Washington Square, was great.
love it.
I love that area. And at the time, I had a best friend, who I thought was my best friend, and we had a screenplay, which was going to star Matt Dillon, who's from this area.
Right. He lives.
Yeah.
He lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when I first met him. So all of a sudden, I'm starting to feel like, wait a minute, there's meetings going on without me. There's things going on without me. And I went to a friend of mine who recommended a lawyer. I went to the lawyer, who's now still my lawyer to this day. He's very good. His name's Jerry Gold. One of the best entertainment lawyers at all. Going through that whole process, he found out that they were trying to backstab. My best friend at the time was trying to backstab me because he wanted the glamour and the glory, just to go at it and stuff like that. And they were promising him the world. And I was upset. I said, how can someone do that? The lawyer looked at me and goes, what are you crying about? This is show business. Right. You better learn the business because you get paid for your craft, but learn the business. Right. And he taught me the beginnings of the business. Right. So that's where I started producing and directing, and to this day, it's still,
I hear you.
Carries through.
I think that's one of the hardest things to learn, is because you come in as an artist and you have the mind of an artist, and you say, okay, the art will drive me and set me up, and that will be great. And then you have to deal with the reality of everything else.
Yes.
And the people that you're dealing with sometimes don't have, best intentions or whatever. And then you go, well, wait a minute. I have to be really understand the business that I'm in. I always said coming out of college, I was a good actor, but I was better at knowing that I have to make phone calls, I have to hustle, I have to.
No one's going to give it to you.
I got the business end of this early.
Right.
Because how else are you going to get work? I wasn't, I was not, the next whatever, but I would work my butt off just to get anywhere.
Yeah, I hear you. And getting there is the easy part. Maintaining it is the hard part, and that's where that all comes hand in hand.
When I was in Hollywood, I was more interested. I was interested in the relationships, and that's really where I wound up getting all my gigs.
Right.
Really more
back then you could do that too.
And it was friendships. I'm not talking about. I developed friendships with the casting people, not intentionally. It just happened. I worked on a film. I became friends with the people that coincidentally were the casting people.
Right.
I'd play poker with them. I'd bring them to my club. We would get wasted. I'd introduce them to girls. But it would be, and it's Hollywood Palace. It would be like, it was an unbelievable atmosphere back then. So they, if they had something, they'd give it to me. It was never any auditions back then.
No, that's good. That's good. And you were at Candy Laces for what, 3 years?
3 years. But because of that, I missed Spinal Tap. I could have been on Spinal Tap.
Right.
But I had an obligation. The same casting company that was doing the Cagney and Lacey was did Spinal Tap.
Right.
And I could have worked on that. And my son kills me. He tells me all the time. Why didn't you work on Spinal Tap?
At the time, Spinal Tap was going to be Spinal Tap.
Yeah. When I thought it was a piece of crap. When they were talking about it. But everyone was getting upgraded.
But it became a big show.
Yeah.
I never saw the show.
It's a cult.
It's a big cult thing. Yeah.
And anybody that got on the show, their parts became magnified. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
But that's it. So to me, the art came after the business.
Yeah.
For you, the art came first, right?
Sure.
Right, Jim?
Sure. And a lot of it, and almost, the art always, as an actor, as a performer, you want to be, hey, this is, let me get up and feel this. You feel so much.
Right.
That's where my brother got cast in a couple of high school plays, and I was helping him learn his lines. And then he kept telling me I was overacting because I was getting into it. And he goes, I just have to run the lines. I don't have to.
He's taking his part.
I'm like, no. And he had the second lead, so I'm reading all the lead roles. So I was getting into it. But very quickly I learned, it's one thing. I went to college for theater, and you have all these artists. And I learned the idea that what good is a $1 million painting if no one sees it? What good is your perfect art if it's not presentable to the masses?
Right.
And so I said, well, I want to, walk that line of going, I want to be great. I want to be really good, and I want to be an artist. that everybody wants to see.
Right, right.
And too
right.
many of my college colleagues were all like, "Oh no, it's all about the art. Don't worry about anything else."
No, when I finished, I was at the Goodman Theater back when the Goodman Theater in Chicago was considered the best director's school. It was the only director's school in the country. Most schools were acting
Oh,
schools.
so you went there to learn to
undergrad.
to direct?
Yes, yes,
Oh,
yes.
I didn't know. I thought you went. Oh,
No,
I
not as
missed
an
that
actor.
part.
No. I
missed
always
that
wanted to
part.
be. I'm sorry. I always wanted to be a director and producer. That's what I never wanted to perform. And everybody asked me, why don't you?
Do you ever perform?
Once in a while,
Yeah.
once in a while, but never. That was not my goal. My goal was to produce and direct.
you were
Matter of fact,
directing.
I came at a crossroads in my life, and I had to make a decision, and I said I'm going to directing, and I was a young kid, and so. And knowing what I know now, I just realized I didn't know anything, but I just wanted to go for it. But the Goodman Theater was, at the time, I think it's bankrupt now, and it claimed bankrupt. The school claimed bankrupt, and is with DePaul. The theater program is with DePaul University, but their main stage is still there.
Right.
We were the young directors that were coming out. Everybody you graduated as a director, and Sam Shepard was there. Patti Smith was there doing Cowboy Mouth.
I worked with Sam Shepard.
Yeah, he workshopped Barry Child there. Now we didn't know what we were the
I
guys
worked with
building
him
the
on The
sets.
Right Stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great movie.
That was my first movie.
That's a great movie, and I love that movie. And then at the time it's a 4-year program. When the time we finished, I said to one of my favorite professors, everybody was talking about, I'm going to go to New York, I'm going to California, I'm going to go do this. I said, what do you think I should do? And he goes, you really want to be a director? I said, yeah. He goes, take 2 years and go to an acting school. And I went, what? He goes, go to an acting school. And what he did, he helped me get into the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, which is here in New York.
I know exactly what.
Yeah, and that's how I came to New York.
I can't believe it. But you see the people walking out front like smoking.
Oh, yeah.
They're so affected.
Oh my God! It was like, yeah. But when you're a young kid, you're thinking, oh, I'm at the American. I thought I was at the American Academy. I said, like, oh, come on, really? I have to go
And
2
there are
more
great
years.
actors,
This
future
is
actors.
This is after the BA.
Wow.
So and he said, so I did it. But at that school,
Yes.
you could not be a director. You couldn't even think about working outside. You had to work. It's your training program. That's for actors.
Right.
So I had to get up there and do all the acting.
But that was good.
But I'll tell you what, years later, now, when I have to communicate with the actor, because actors come from all walks of life, all different methods and whatever. Right. And that's what was great about the Academy, is that there was not one method. Right. They taught different methods, and the theory was whatever worked for you, that's what you took. Right. And that was a blessing.
And I would say also, working with, even on Cagney and Lacey, we had actors who were directors. Working with actors or people who have had acting experience, who are your directors, they have a much more intuitive of what the acting.
Yeah,
I mean,
and you
I
find out
that's
you
so
learn.
smart.
Yeah,
that,
you
the advice you got.
learn what to do and what not to do. One time I was young, off Broadway you could do back then. Remember about off Broadway? You could do it for nothing.
Right.
And that was another great thing we had.
See, I didn't know. I never did theater, so I didn't know.
Well, off Broadway was a great place for people to showcase in New York City for young kids.
Okay.
You did terrible plays, but you got to work.
Right.
Nowadays you can't do that because the real estate is like, the rental space is like ridiculous. But back then that's how we learned. That's how I met people. Right. Through and the theater that I was involved with. Mickey Rourke was a young kid. Bruce Willis was around. Dan. That's how I met Dan Lauria. We were talking about it earlier. Yeah, they were all from the same. We all came from the same place. And
wow, that's so cool.
And Mickey Rourke got mad one time I was doing a play. Yeah. We were young, he was, we were all young. I was doing a play. It was at the American Theater of Actors on West 54th Street, and he wanted to roll, and I went with my gut instinct.
Oh, God.
I went with somebody else.
Oh no!
He went out. He said, "Fuck that." I'm sorry.
Oh,
he said, forget this stuff, And he went out, and then about 8 months later, I said, Mickey Rourke's in diner? I said, what is that?
I met him in Hollywood when he was doing Rumblefish.
Oh yeah, I love Rumblefish.
And the whole crew came up to the bar. They came to the bar one night, and it was like, wow, there's Mickey Rourke.
Yeah, he would. But that's how he got so fed up. He went out, and then he got diner.
See, maybe you helped him there.
No, he helped himself. He was a great actor. He was very talented.
So, so how did you move from theater to film?
Film school. I've always wanted to do film. Theater was a way to learn my craft. Right. It was a great craft learning to, and learning is the entire thing you do is always a learning process. I mean, you never stop learning. If you stop learning, then we might as well just give up. So the thing is, it's true. It's so true.
I'm going to be 60. I'm still learning.
Yeah, and the thing is, every time you're on a different show, I'm learning something else. And every show I do, like when we were filming the Eyes of the Kings and stuff like that, I was still nervous. I still get nervous. But to me, I've learned in films. I learned through the best. I learned from some tough people. And you have to be prepared. Everything's in pre-pro. Everything's in pre-production. Everything is, you got to be organized, and that's your foundation. You build your foundation, then anything happens, it goes off of that. But everything will happen, and you let it happen. And then, but through experience, you learn how to maintain. But then every time I do a show, I still get those butterflies. I go, oh my God, how am I going to get out of this mess? You know, I got myself in this mess.
One of the easy things about, like, with scriptless that Jim and I are involved in, it's easy because something goes wrong, you just go in a different direction, you know, and we make it up as it go along. But
but I've always wanted to be in. To answer your question, I always wanted to be in film since I was a kid. Right. So then, from there, that's when I made the transition to film school.
So when you were in film school, it was all film. It wasn't video.
No,
so and I know I've worked on NYU shorts.
16. You shot 16 millimeter.
And you wound up editing it. You wound up doing. You do every aspect.
I got accepted at Columbia and I got accepted at NYU. I chose NYU because they had a more. Their theory is more practical. Get hands-on.
Great school.
Columbia was more at the time just developing it, and they were more heady. And I came from that theater world, so I didn't need that. What I needed was to learn how to put a camera together, how to do all that technical stuff, and that's what NYU was good for.
So. Was it the same way as it is now? Like you start off doing shorts and things like that? Or?
Your first year, back then, I heard it's different now, but back then, you did one thing in the first year. It was called sight and sound. That's it. Wow. You did nothing but sight. You learned about sight and sound. You did your first stuff was visual without sound, telling a story. The whole thing about telling a story is through.
I think it's still the same because I think I did one of those with a woman who's now Beyonce's personal videographer.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. But so, do you still have your early stuff? Do you still have copies of that stuff?
Oh man, yeah. I
got how cool is that? Now?
I have it on that videotape, the 3/4, whatever that's
called. How cool
VHS. I still have it. But it's I did horror films. When I got out of film school, I got lucky because I hooked up with a broker. And he wanted to do horror films, and I said, "Oh yeah." So I was, we like I told you earlier, we shot the first one here. It's called Space Avenger. It was shot here in Mamaroneck, and because the investor was from here, and then we went on to do Mother's Day. We did a lot of other things, and it was like, but I started off doing horror films, but then I realized this is not a world I want to be in. You know, this is not where I wanted to be. So then I through those connections, those years of making people doing people I said, I want to get out of this world. And I started going legit. And then I got my first show after that was Ghostbusters 2. Okay. I got Ghostbusters 2.
Before we get any further, would you like to share just a little clip now? Okay. I know we're not up to that point in time in the show, but I want to show. Afterwards, I really want to show you some of Frank's unbelievable film, and so here's a clip that I'd like to share with you. Okay.
tell her nothing. She's a boss that's always into something. She riding, system thumping, all through the city for attention. Now the heat's on the queen. One lead got the base on the scheme. Time and laid off the scene.
My God, Frank, I didn't know you had it in you. That was awesome, man. That was really good.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm feeling it. Oops, and I also felt the mic. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Your work is artistic. It's urban. It's now. It's real.
Yeah, it's a script that I was working with for a while. It's called Eyes of the Kings, and what happened with this part is the investors wanted to see because it stars Penelope Cruz and it stars Michelle Rodriguez.
Wow.
And
what was it like working with Penelope Cruz?
We still have to shoot this. We're still shooting this, and 'cause she had a baby, so she just had her second baby and stuff like that. But I met her and talked to her about the role and stuff like that, and she loved it. And Michelle Rodriguez wants to do it. And what happened is the investor says, "Well, how are you going to handle the gang members and all that stuff?" I said, "Well, I'll show you." So then what they did is they gave me some money to shoot this trailer to show them. And what happened is that girl that you're seeing, she's a tough girl. She's a beautiful girl. She's from Haiti, and she had a tough life. She's fist apart. But the movie's it's not about the gang. It's about Penelope Cruz plays a detective who's in the anti-gang unit who's trying to get that young boy out of a gang. And what happens is he gets busted. He has to do community service. So she talks the judge into community service. He was going to go to jail, but she talks to the judge into doing community service at a retirement home. So in that retirement home, we have Susan Sarandon playing one of the ladies.
Oh my God, I'm in love with Susan Sarandon.
She's fabulous. And
I've been in love with her for years.
There's a scene that we worked together
ever since
on.
the Rocky Horror Picture.
Yeah, there's a scene that we worked together on. And then anyway, that's where the story really takes place, because the kid realizes how precious life is, because he sees people at the end of their life, and he sees people, parents and kids coming to visit their grandparents or whatever, and then he realizes how precious life is and not the streets. It's really not a gang movie.
Who wrote the story?
I wrote it,
Oh,
I used to work for studios, and then I broke away from them, and in 2004 started doing my own stuff, because it was time. It was time for me to start doing my own stuff and writing. And so mostly I do now is I write myself as well.
And I mean, Jim knows. I mean, Jim and
Jim
I.
was he was in it, but we had to cut him out actually. So.
But the feeling.
The scene, not the movie.
I mean, even though in my little show, I come up with a story, but just to see other people telling your story, and the way it came out on the screen,
the execution of it,
the execution. I mean, is there anything better in life when it's a good execution?
It's a great feeling. It's a great feeling.
There's nothing.
And it's amazing because, we shot a lot, as you know, and Dougie Fresh is one of my partners in my company, FMC Productions, and he knows as well as I do, because we did many projects together. And we shot a lot of footage.
Right.
So when you get in the editing room,
I know.
Which I love that stage, by the way. It's just like, 3 people and you're sitting there. But when you first look at it and everybody's looking at you, you go, oh, man. Where do we begin? They always say it. I said, well, let's start from the beginning. Let's start. And you just start chipping away. And then magically, if you listen to it, if you really learn how to listen to your story or script, they'll start talking back to you.
One thing, I'm happy that Jim is my editor.
Yeah.
Because,
there you go.
because I don't know editing from a hole in the wall. And he actually does the art. I mean, he's an artist, and
right.
I appreciate it. But that's the piece. That's the piece that's very important.
Yeah. Right. The biggest break was I did the film called The Believer, which launched Ryan Gosling's film career.
I was looking at that online.
Yeah. We won Sundance for that. We got nominated for an Oscar for that, and we even won the Berlin Film Festival because
How cool! Did you go to Berlin?
Oh yeah, it was a great place. But it was a film about a Jewish kid who joined a neo-Nazi group. It was a fabulous film. Ryan Gosling never looked back after that film. It was this big.
So what is it like? Again, I'm asking you questions that are almost. What is it like to launch a person like his career?
It was amazing because we actually had to fight for him. Because the studios wanted somebody else. They wanted a kid from a TV show or something like that. And the director was Henry Bean. And he's a wonderful writer. Him and his wife wrote Desperately Seeking Susan.
Right. Oh, that.
He did Internal Affairs, Basic Instinct 2.
Oh my God.
He was a great writer in Hollywood actually.
Right.
But that was his first directorial debut.
Oh my God.
And I came into the picture because the picture he was going to start that as a low budget. Then it started getting bigger and bigger. So that's when I came in, and from the studios, and I was one of the producers, production executive on it, and And
I saw on IMDb. It's like,
yeah,
I was so impressed.
it was fabulous. But
So
we had
impressed.
they wanted somebody else, and then director Henry was saying, "No, I really want Ryan. He's a kid. He was coming off of Young Hercules. I think Ryan was doing Young Hercules at the time. They didn't want him, but we had to fight for him. Says, no, we want him. And it got to a point where, then I guess we're not going to do it then. Right. And then they said, all right, go ahead and do it, because Henry had his connections, because being a well-known writer.
Absolutely.
And it launched his career.
With your role in that, how much do you step in and back the director? How much do you?
100%, 100%. Because I was a production, that was my role actually. I was brought in to do that because it was going chaotic. They brought me in to fix it up. And I'll tell you, if we have time, I'll tell you a fabulous production
I'll put
story.
it this way, even if we don't have time, we're going to be doing, you're such a great guest, we're going to have you for another
great.
episode.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but what happened is, we had, there was Teresa Russell and Billy Zane was in that movie as well. Billy Zane was
Teresa Russell,
yeah,
oh
and,
my
and Billy
God.
Zane was just coming out of Titanic.
Right, but I still like Teresa Russell.
She's fabulous.
And she's
she was
gorgeous.
fabulous. She was still gorgeous. And well, we had somebody else actually. I don't want to say, but we had somebody, another star, and that person worked with us, rehearsed for a month.
Right.
Friday came along after with preparation, and Monday we were about to shoot, and I told everybody, okay, go have a drink because this is going to be your last day because we're going to start shooting and we're going to it's going to be crazy. I'm having a drink with my assistant. And I get a call from her agent, the actor's agent. He goes, she just dropped out. I said, what are you talking about? I thought it was a joke. She goes, she just dropped out. She realized that she didn't want to be a Nazi madam. I said, are you crazy? She's been rehearsing for a month, and I went hysterical. Wow. I went crazy. And then I said, well, this is on you guys. You guys got to find me somebody else. And then Henry was like, oh, what do we do? What are we going to do? And I said, we're going to keep shooting. So we had to push everything back a week. Because we lost all our locations.
Right. Oh God, that's what happens.
You had a location, and you had to do it Monday.
We deal with locations all the time.
Yes,
We have the same problem.
We lost. It was like a domino effect.
I know.
So then Teresa Russell came within 1 week. She knew the role. She knew the script because it was a big role. Yeah. She was a professional 1 week later. But for her, for the actors and that was fine. Right. But for production, we didn't know we were shooting the next time each day. So I put on a second location team. So one location team was out scouting while we were shooting, and Henry was like, I just said, Henry, just keep shooting, and just keep doing what you're doing. And then I saw years later, I saw Ryan in Sundance, and we were talking, we were having drinks. And I said, yeah, remember that time we lost all those locations? He goes, no. I don't remember that. That's how good we kept it away.
And that's the good thing.
And that's what you absolutely what you have to do.
We kept it away from them. That they were the creative team,
Right.
And our job at the time was to support that.
Yep.
And that was the beauty of that.
Yeah, that is the beauty of it. But sometimes
it's crazy.
Beauty fades.
You don't sleep.
Beauty fades, especially at this time of the show.
Oh, there we
go.
So
I really appreciate.
Quick.
I really appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you, sir.
You too, Jim.
Thanks, man.
But there's only one thing left to say. That's a wrap. Good night, folks. It's good. Good show.